Hi, everyone, and welcome. We have a special edition here of Ask Dr. Dansinger because I'm on the road. I'm traveling. We stopped at, my dad and I stopped at Anderson's Pea Soup. It's always tough when you travel to find a restaurant that you can get some healthy options at a good price. And Anderson's, which is in Central California, has this great split pea soup, all natural ingredients, along with a salad, and it makes for a really great lunch. I think, Dr. Danziger, you would approve of it. I, I got my bowl here. See, I'm proving that I'm eating healthy and it's nice and warm on a really, really cold day in the 40s. But it proves that you can have something healthy while traveling. But we have lots of questions that came in for you this week. So I want to get to those. But first, news item this week that I think is worth addressing, getting your thoughts on, and maybe some folks in the audience might want to chime in on this and comment on this. But the city of San Francisco is going after several food manufacturing companies that are producing ultra processed foods that the city says is making us sick. And I'm curious, Dr. Danziger, first from you, and then anyone else who wants to chime in as well. What are the most concerning ingredients that you think should be flagged and could be worth a lawsuit like this to get rid of them?
Well, this is a very hot topic, and I'll start. Let me start by saying, like most Americans, I treasure our freedoms, and we've fought as a nation very hard for a free society, and Americans have, in general, favored freedoms for individuals and for corporations. And right now, corporations have a lot of freedoms to make foods as long as they're not using any illegal ingredients. And so there are certain ingredients that are illegal because they're poisonous or they're banned. And then there's a lot of unhealthy ingredients out there that are not against the law, like sugar. And do we want to live in a society where cookies are against the law? No. And so these companies are free to make unhealthy products, and Americans are free to eat them. And cities like San Francisco are also free to raise objections and create their own laws, including lawsuits. And so we've seen cities or states propose to ban certain ingredients, but you can't point to a specific company necessarily and sue. And so I've got my eyes on what's going to happen here. To get to your question, though, what are the most concerning ingredients? Number one is sugar. Sugar added to food sugar is not a poison in the sense that it'll kill you today, but it could kill you tomorrow. And so, as a society, we have to figure out what to do about sugar. And then I'm always concerned about refined flour and also animal fats, like palm oil is very common. And so it's these combinations of sugar, starch, and saturated fats that are the most concerning to me. These are, I think, much more concerning than artificial dyes or even artificial sweeteners. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear other viewpoints.
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe Heinz or Marina or Dean, do you have any thoughts on this? You can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, this is Heinz.
Hi, Heinz.
I just got home. I saw Dr. Armstrong today.
Oh, good.
Anyway,
I was chatting with him too.
Yeah. Anyway, I just know it's not a question, but a comment. I just realized recently, and maybe a lot of other people know this, pretzels are ultra processed, many pretzels.
Yes.
Dr. Dansinger, your comment?
Because obviously a pretzel doesn't exist in nature, and to make a pretzel, you need to you need a machine pretty much to make, all the pretzels, that come in bags are machine made, and it's highly refined flour that's in there. And it spikes the blood sugar. It's almost as bad as sugar.
Thank you, Heinz. What about Marina? Marina, do you have any comments?
I do. And I love sugar, but I know it's not good.
Don't we all?
But it's everywhere. It's in everything. It's so hard to, when you think you may be eating healthy, and then you look, you say, oh, good, sugar in there too. It's terrible, in my opinion. How we added sugar to everything.
But I'm curious, how do we encourage manufacturers to not put in extra sugar? For example, you go to get some stir-fry vegetables from the freezer, or French fries from the freezer, where you don't think sugar would be added to French fries. Not Dr. Dansinger that we should be eating French fries, but if they're baked, they're healthier than fried, right? But they add sugar to them if you on some of the brands, and that to me is hidden sugar.
Right.
It's unnecessary sugar. It's sugar to create an addiction versus a necessary sugar for sweetness. And that to me is really concerning. What about Dean? Dean, what do you think? Dean is actually calling in from South Africa.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I've got a lot to learn about sugar. I'm a sugar addict myself. So I'm calling myself out right now. I probably drink about 2 to 3 spoons of sugar in my coffee every day. And I drink a lot of coffee. So you can only amount how much sugar I actually take in on a daily basis. And I know I should stop, but it's addictive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we eat healthy as much as we should, in terms of just food and things like that. I know I should be eating a lot more fruit, natural sugar, because I know that you're just mentioning like processed sugar, like this flour that you just mentioned, and things like that. I think I should be eating a lot more like apples, grapes, strawberries, all these things that actually is good for your body because it's naturally made to be good for you. And all these processed things is not good at all. And I'm still young, but I think, like you said, it might not kill me today, but it might kill me tomorrow, maybe 5-10 years from now. And it will build up, and eventually I'll be like, wow, I should have started, maybe working on that long time ago rather than now. Like now it's a priority and I need to get, trying to put a whole 15, 20 years of where I could have eaten healthy, and now I'm trying to do it within 2 years, trying to get by. So it's a really a must thing that we all need to sort of like focus on and abide by. It's not easy, especially when there's an addiction for something you really, really love, like cakes, cookies, and muffins, and all those kind of things. And everything nice, right? So I'm just here to listen and learn from the experts and help hopefully apply that and see what we can do about that.
Dr. Dansinger, I love his honesty.
Well said, absolutely.
But Dr. Dansinger, you have options because you like actually sweet tea, I think you said at one point. Maybe you have some options for Dean to replace those 3 spoonfuls of sugar with something equally as satisfying. That's a little healthier.
Sugar is one of the most addictive substances around, and modern technology has given us a whole range of sugar replacements. And so I think the best one is stevia. That's naturally occurring and definitely provides sweetness. Some people object to an aftertaste. My second favorite these days is allulose, which is a naturally occurring sugar that's synthesized in a laboratory. But I think allulose is on the rise. And I even saw some chocolate chips at Trader Joe's that were made out of allulose. And so allulose does not raise blood sugar. And we need to study the health effects a little bit more, but right now it's looking encouraging. And then, Splenda and NutraSweet, those aren't my favorite, but I don't think that's really those artificial sweeteners. I don't think they're the main source of trouble in our, health, the Americans' health. I think it's too many calories from too much sugar, too much refined starch, too much animal fat, too much processed food.
Yeah. And so we're back at the processed food, but the number one issue really is all of the added sugar. But how do you control that? That isn't something that can be, here in the US, really government controlled in terms of, because we do have our freedoms and you don't want them saying, hey, you can't put extra sugar in this, that, or the other thing. It really comes down to education, I think, more, creating the trend of making it trendy to eat healthy. And I think that it's becoming more trendy to eat healthy. I think because a lot of people are on budgets and the cost of food is higher, you do end up falling back on some of the less expensive, more ultra processed, higher sugar items. But, I think that I would be curious from the patient's perspective here, what kind of messaging really would work? Maybe starting with Dean. What would work for you to get you to not put that extra dollop of sugar in your coffee?
Well, at this point, I think the biggest motivator for me is also because I work in patient care, right? I'm seeing exactly how this is affecting people. And I'm not just dealing with people who are my age. It's majority of people are about 50, 60, 70 above. And, I'm looking at stories where they're like, and they tell me themselves like, hey, I wish I was 30 years younger, where I could have started and everything I know now, if I knew what I knew now, and they try and, they're always trying to like put their stories on me. It's like, yeah, you're still young. You should do this. Don't do what I did. And I'm like, and I'm taking all that in. And I'm like, you know what? They're probably very right. And I think for me to understand, and also because I like to do a lot of research, I'm very analytical. So I want to know exactly what is the benefits, what is the, is there going to be any side effects and those things that I wanted, even though no, sugar is even worse and probably what I'm doing, but I want to know what is the best thing to do. And also, is it cost effective as well? I think that's the biggest turn around for me, or the reason why I wouldn't go for something is because, say, for instance, if I look at like allulose that you just mentioned, and I look at how much does it cost, it doesn't seem very expensive. It seems budget worthy. When I look at it, I didn't even know that allulose even existed. You see, it's these type of things that I'm like looking, I'm like, wow, this, maybe I should go for this. Like for a whole bag, it's only like, I don't know, $10 for a bag of it. And if it's healthier for me, let me try it, right? And I think it's just about budget friendly at the end of the day, like you just mentioned. Things are expensive, and I think that's what turns a lot of people away from actually trying it, because I think it's that concept of healthy is a lot more expensive. It can be, but I think if you do it the right way and you know what you're doing, then it can be something that you can do.
But what if it, Dr. Dansinger, what if it started in the hospitals? I just had a patient that posted today, he's on deck for a below knee amputation because his below the knee arteries are all mucked up, because of his diabetes and inflammation in his arteries. And he was a smoker as well. And he showed a picture of his night before surgery meal. And it consisted of a big brownie, a big white piece of bread or a bread roll, mashed potatoes with butter and gravy, and some carrots. And I couldn't see the protein. It wasn't even on the screen. So I'm not even sure. I'm sure it came with some sort of protein, like a piece of turkey or something. But with the brownie, don't even get me started on the number of soda cans that were in the picture that included a Diet Dr. Pepper. What are your thoughts? We got to start. You can't feed unhealthy people unhealthy things and expect them to heal. It's got to start right there in the hospital and getting and leading by example, don't you think?
100%. I think American hospitals should be ashamed of themselves. And I don't know how it is outside of the United States, and I fear it's not much better, but it's an embarrassment to the medical profession, in my opinion, the way hospitals serve patients. And schools should also be ashamed of themselves. And institutions like hospitals and schools are supposed to be role models, and they're undermining the health and sending a clear message to patients and to children that they're willing to cut corners on the nutrition. And so that's what I have to say about that. They could really focus on just healthy foods with one ingredient and get away from processed foods like brownies. Absolutely.
So I just want to make you even more upset. I was speaking as faculty at a conference in El Paso, Texas over the weekend. And one of the organizers of the event, her daughter was just diagnosed at age, I think, 15 or 16 with type 1 diabetes. When she was in the hospital with her first diagnosis, you won't believe that they served her hot dogs and pizza and told her that she can pretty much, as long as she has the appropriate amount of insulin, she can eat anything she wants. Is that the message that we should be sending to any patient, and especially a type 1 diabetic that is in their most formidable years, where they can make the biggest difference in their health?
Absolutely not. It's sickening. And, companies and hospitals and schools, they will all point to their customers and say, we are here to serve them, and we make and serve what the American public is asking for. And in the end, there's a lot of truth to that. The reason there's sugar in the potatoes is because the company sells more product when they do it that way. And we can blame society can blame the sellers, people who sell drugs. We can point to them, but in the end, right, they'll always point to, I'm just providing a service and meeting consumer demand. And in the end, parents need to teach their children. We all need to help each other so that what's happening in the United States reflects what we as Americans truly want. And so what I'm looking for is some leadership to turn around this ultra-processed food, and we have to make hard choices. One of the best things we could ever do, I think, for our children, the next generation, is get control of this sugar problem. And there's no clear consensus by our own society about how to do that. But it's better to talk about these things than just to ignore the issue altogether.
I think it can start with the patients. It can start with each one of the people that are actually watching right now to say and demand when you're in the hospital and, hey, I want a healthier meal. I have my dad trained. He asks for a healthier meal. He asks for a piece of fish and vegetables. But, he was a pre-diabetic and they even put sugar in his IV. And I had to stop that because right. I tell everyone, make sure you check your IV, do you need that extra sugar in your drip? I wondered why his A1C was up because we had gotten it under control. And I was like, wait a minute, what's in that drip there? And he didn't need it. There was no reason for it. It was just whatever came, they put it up there. So anyway, yeah, it really starts there. But we did have a couple of other questions that came in that are on the processed food thing. And one, person came and asked about chips. He loves potato chips. And he wondered if you had any alternative for potato chips for someone who is just addicted to not only the texture, the crunch, the salt, also the added sugar that makes them a little bit sweet as well and more addictive.
We love our crunchy, salty snacks. And I wish I had a good answer to this. So when it comes to crunchy, salty snacks, nuts are natural. There's a lot of calories in nuts. But for many potato chip lovers, they're willing and able to kind of use nuts instead. The popcorn, I have mixed feelings about that. But, popcorn is low in calories. It'll spike your blood sugar. I mean, more than nuts would. But it's probably better than potato chips. And, I've seen all sorts of products that are, sweet potato chips instead, or, this. So there might be some things out there, but the crunchy salty is a real challenge. And I wish I could say pretzels were the answer or that pork rinds were the answer. But all of these alternatives have major negatives to them as well. And so figuring out how to, instead of replace potato chips, break the habit is better than finding a middle ground, I think.
We had another question that came in regards to the carnivore diet. Would you mind commenting on your feelings about the carnivore diet? I mean, considering, if they choose more grass-fed, grass-finish and wild, there is some, especially for people that have compromised immune systems and things like that, that there are some dietitians and doctors that have suggested that. What are your overall thoughts and considerations with that one?
Yeah, so a carnivore style eating strategy would be really high in meat. And this is inspired by the way our human ancestors might have been eating out in the wild, and especially in places in like Siberia, for example, where there weren't a lot of plants, and you'd go out and hunt what you can. So all eating strategies have pluses and minuses. And what I like about a carnivore eating strategy is that it's going to be low. It's going to eliminate sugar and all of these processed foods that have sugar in it. There's no starch. It's just focusing on meat and eggs and probably a little bit of dairy. And there's something to be said about that. It can be very high in animal fat, which you can get away with a little bit of animal fat when you're pushing your carbs so low. And so I have a lot of positive things to say about that as one of a whole spectrum of good eating strategies. Yes. And, it's just one of many good possibilities.
So just a fun question that's just along those lines, and I'm sure it's pretty, short answer, but this one gentleman wants to know, he is leaning more towards, he's not a carnivore, he's trying to do a balanced diet, but he has to get his B vitamins up. So his dietitian said she wants to make sure that he has a little bit of red meat every month or every couple of weeks. And so he's debating between Wagyu and USDA. He can get grass fed, but he can't get grass finish. But he said, which one would you lean towards, more the USDA or Wagyu, or does it really matter?
Well, Wagyu has a lot of fat in there. And so, I'm quite concerned about animal fat, especially, including from beef. And so I just always favor leaner. And then animals that are out in the wild eating, natural food are the leanest of all. And so game meats like venison, for example, are all much healthier than beef. When you're eating beef, you want it to be, grass fed and grass finished if possible, but there's a whole middle ground. And so how lean it is and what kind of diet the cow is eating are all important considerations. Yeah.
So venison, and also another one, bison. What do you think about bison?
Yeah, much better.
Much leaner. We have a question from Nancy that came in. She's sick. We're in the cold and flu season, and people who are diabetic have issues with their blood sugar when they're sick. Can you talk about that and considerations for these diabetics in managing their blood sugar when they do have a cold or a flu?
Yeah, so when the body is fighting an illness, including a virus or bacterial infection, the blood sugar tends to go up. So the body is fighting, the immune system's activated, that activates cortisol and other hormones, and those can raise blood sugar. And sadly, high blood sugar interferes with the body's ability to fight infections. And so it's very important when you're sick to keep an eye on the blood sugar and try to manage it. So there are, cold medicines that are diabetic friendly because they don't have sugar in it. And most important, I think, is to, if you have a medical issue, see a doctor about it. You might need to have a temporary medication adjustment, and you need to eat foods that are going to help you heal. It's a lot harder to eat healthily when you just don't feel good. That's a time when people might start to turn to ice cream and other, sugar and starch because it's soothing, but that's very counterproductive. And so you want to eat healthily and do your best and keep an eye on your blood sugars.
And do we have time for a couple questions from Mike, if Mike wants to jump in?
I have time for one more.
One more, Mike. Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Dansinger. I hope you're all right. I was just asking about things that are breaded, like if I was to have like chicken burgers or fish, is it more healthier to have breaded stuff? Is there a problem with that? Like breaded chicken burgers or, I'll show you.
Right. That's a great question. No, I understand. So the less bread, the better. And so I'm concerned about bread because bread is starch and it turns to sugar in the body. And so, for example, a person could have a piece of chicken breast that is grilled or breaded. And of course, grilled would be more favorable because it doesn't have breading. A piece of fish with a little bit of breadcrumb on that is better than a battered piece of fried fish. Yeah. And some people would go to the trouble of scraping off the breadcrumbs. Others would say, well, it's a small price to pay for a really beautiful, entree. And so, there's a middle ground. And I think you're asking, a question along the lines of how do we best navigate, the middle ground? And so sometimes a little bit of unhealthy food is useful as an ingredient if the whole dish itself is healthy. And so sometimes just a little bit of honey, a little bit of breadcrumbs, a little bit of extra salt, and it can be worth it when it makes an otherwise healthy dish more appealing and attractive. Great question.
Yeah.
And
because I'm going to be eating them on whole wheat buns with lettuce and tomato on as well. So,
Dr. Dansinger, so I might have a suggestion for Mike that we do, and you can tell me if it's good or bad. But I actually use hemp seeds, so I dip it, whatever the meat is, in some egg wash, and then I dip it in hemp seeds or chickpea flour, and then I stick it in the air fryer. What do you think about that?
If you're asking me, I say that sounds great. Many would say that sounds like a lot of effort.
So, and cooking in an air fryer is that healthier, obviously, than anything? Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Dansinger. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to Dr. Dansinger's YouTube channel at
Michael Dansinger, MD.
Michael Dansinger, MD. So youtube.com/the @ Michael Dansinger, MD. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to ours at The Way to My Heart as well, which is pretty awesome. All of our content on both channels are great. And if you want to talk to Dr. Dansinger about his personalized diabetes reversal services available in Minnesota, Virginia, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Florida, make sure you go to diabetesreversalpartners.com because it is covered by Medicare and it's covered by Medicare Advantage PPO plans. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Dansinger, again, for donating your time. We really appreciate you, and have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.